Hi, I'm Steve Plates, and I'll be your host for this evening's program on Voices from the Village. Tonight we're going to be talking about Black Lives Matter. There is a growing concern nationally about disparate treatment of people of color by law enforcement, as witnessed by the civil unrest in Ferguson and Baltimore. This is certainly an issue that many people are not only concerned about, but I think it's fair to say that it really has impacted their lives. We're very fortunate this evening to have on the program three folks who are not only knowledgeable but thoughtful and articulate on the issue to bring some perspective to this. Mithril Bowerman, welcome. ACLU board member for Santa Cruz County, thank you for coming. Simba Kenyatta, president of the NAACP of Santa Cruz County. Simba, welcome back. And Wanda Knight. Wanda, thank you for coming, and I'm sure you have some interesting perspective for us. We'll be looking forward to that. Interestingly enough, on the front page today of the San Jose Mercury News, there was a study that was done, and the data was collected by the San Jose Police Department at the request of the city's independent police auditor, who is Lodoris Cordell. I know Lodoris Cordell a little bit. She was on the bench over there. And it found that in San Jose, a city where blacks and Latinos make up slightly more than a third of the population, those groups made up 2/3 of the traffic stops. Once stopped, blacks and Latinos were also significantly more likely to be ordered out of the vehicle, and only 6% of all those stops were actually arrested. So there is an emerging pattern, I think, to this. And I know the ACLU is engaging on this. Well, I mean, we're going to talk about to what extent it is emerging. But give us your observations from your perspective personally, and also as an ACLU board member and working in this issue.
Well, I think, as Simba just touched on, this has probably been going on for a long time. The emerging pattern we're thankfully seeing, it's actually being looked at.
Right.
And so we have, more and more data is coming in. Another issue is that, black suspects are more likely to be searched for contraband, even though they are much less likely to actually have any. And from across the country, I'm very delighted to see this study from San Jose, because it verifies this is in fact happening in our area too. I don't think this is any big surprise to anybody. As I said, the great news is it's finally being documented.
Yeah. And Simba, you and I have worked together for some time on SCORE, the Santa Cruz County Community Coalition to Overcome Racism, to bring some awareness to the challenges of institutionalized racism. And you're recently president of the NAACP for Santa Cruz County, so congratulations.
Thank you.
How are you engaging in this? How are you viewing this? You react. It's not an emerging pattern. It is a pattern, but tell us how.
Yeah, I've been watching this for a long time, and people have a tendency to think that this is something new, but I'm a former member of the Black Panther Party for self-defense. We had to do that back in '68. We had to form committees and stuff and arm ourselves and go around the neighborhoods and make sure the police behave themselves. And so this isn't anywhere near new. This has just been going on for a long time. Now we get to video it, which tends to mean nothing, because you would think after you see somebody choke to death on film that something would happen to the people who did it, but no. So and we've had a discussion with the Santa Cruz Police Department, the NAACP, at a meeting with them and a couple other community groups. And the subject of the Police Review Board came up, and that went nowhere. So I'll talk about this more later. But.
Yeah, Wanda, welcome and happy Mother's Day. You have a personal story about this kind of disparate treatment of people of color. Why don't you share that with us?
Yeah, I live up in the San Lorenzo Valley. We live in Brookdale. And my son lives in Ben Lomond. And I've been up there since '87. And on October 29th, he got stopped by the sheriff 10 seconds from his house. And he was going through what I thought was protocol to show them that his license, registration, insurance inside the car. And when he went to do that, the sheriff said, no, leave it in the car, and pulled him out. And then they said they had to search him. And he goes, why? And he said, because you didn't show us your license or registration. And my son is about 5'11", 300 pounds. And I don't know what else went on, but I do know that 2 of my friends drove by and seen him being detained, and they called me. And I only lived 2 minutes away. So I was on my way to go see what was going on, and he pulled up in the driveway scared. He was like, Mom, do you see him? Are they following me? Mom, why'd they treat me that way? And I was scared. I was like, and he goes, if they drive by, Mom, stop them and ask them why they treated me in such a manner. But they never did. And he was scared. And I was scared. And what really made me even more afraid of the sheriffs, or fear of them, is when Michael I would say Glover. His name ain't Glover.
Michael Brown.
No,
No.
yeah, not Michael Brown. The other guy that just got killed.
Was Fred,
Yeah,
Oh,
Freddie Gray?
Freddie
Freddie
Gray.
Gray?
Gray.
Yeah, in Baltimore.
yeah, in Baltimore. Because my son is 25,
Mm-hmm.
and when I found out that he was 25, I was scared. I was like, oh, I can't do this. And so I filed a complaint with the Board of Supervisors, but I can't file it because he's 25. So he has
he's
to
of
file it.
age.
Yeah.
So I'm going to amend it and file it about the sheriff, because I called the sheriff and asked him what would happen. So he told me that sometimes when you're alone, that we pull them out of the car because they might have a gun or a knife with them. And I said, well, really? Well, I have 2 people call me to say that you was with a partner. So I'm filing for him lying. I don't understand why he would lie about having a partner with him. See, and that put doubt in my head. If he lies about something so menial as that, he could lie about anything else.
Right.
And I offered to talk to him with my son, because my son is scared. And he shouldn't have to be.
No, absolutely not.
No, and it's not like it's just these young African American men being pulled over. The man that was just running for sheriff, Robert Persley, he was the head of the SWAT team for Santa Cruz County. He
Right.
was a lieutenant in the sheriff's department. And when he was running for sheriff, one of the things he talked about was the fact that people didn't feel safe enough to even file complaints. You know, and he wanted to, if he became sheriff, to make sure that the community knows that their complaints are welcome and that they will be acted upon. Of course, he lost, for one thing. He hadn't thought that way, and 2, he was black. But and he talked about it one day when we at SCORE had invited him and several other people for a conversation, and nobody showed up but me and him. And we sat and talked for like an hour and a half, and just listening to this man talking about how he's been stopped by the Santa Cruz Police Department several times until he gets out of the car and showed all his credentials and shit, and he's a lieutenant and sheriff. And they back down, but he is, he talks about it, that, he's been stopped by the Santa Cruz Police Department. I know, man, that's a lawyer came down here from San Francisco, got a real nice Mercedes-Benz, hit the city limits, they don't want him. It's too nice a car.
Well, it's been a long practice up in the valley.
Oh,
Let me,
I've been.
Let me remind our viewers that this is a live call-in show, so if you have a question for any of our panelists, please feel free to call in at 425-8848, extension 30. That's 425-8848, extension 30. I know that there's a lot of kind of overarching questions. We have all been looking at Michelle Alexander's work in mass incarceration and the facts that, although African Americans comprise 13% of the population, they comprise 40% of the prison population. So there is that kind of institutionalized racism that we have here. And I know that the ACLU has worked on that kind of aspect of that.
Yes, and one of the difficulties that this mass incarceration is causing is it's really disrupting black families in the black community, and so it just has this ripple effect.
Right.
Also, it seems to be part of a trend. Well, these sort of low-level offenses, a lot of the people who have been killed recently by police were being stopped for really low-level offenses.
Freddie Gray was supposed to have had a knife.
That was illegal. I don't
turned
know
out
how
to be
they
a
knew
pen
that.
knife. Exactly.
Right.
How they looked in
And
his
then
pockets as he was running away, I guess.
Mike Brown was allegedly shoplifting. Eric Garner was selling loose cigarettes. And so one of the things that occurs to me is when we have a society where we are really pursuing these very low-level offenses, there's a lot of opportunity to have disparate impact. Maybe if we had a situation where you had to be doing something a little bit more serious in order to wind up in jail. And of course, the other thing that the ACLU has been looking at is the terrible effect of the war on drugs. It has not worked, it's never worked, it's not going to work in the future, but we've ended up with this mass incarceration of so many people who weren't hurting anybody else. And this, of course, has once again disproportionately affected black community.
And it was really refreshing to hear Bill Clinton say, I screwed up. I mean, he didn't say in those words, but he said, the laws that I enacted when I was president contributed immeasurably to the black incarceration rate, and he's sorry for doing it. That was really refreshing to hear somebody say, I shouldn't have done what I did because it had terrible effects. And we don't think about unintended consequences. We don't think about anything except the immediate in America. We think about the immediate, and that's pretty much it.
I know that during the early days of SCORE, of which you are a founding member, you had listening sessions. The community was interested enough to come in and talk about the possibility that people of color in Santa Cruz County were not being treated equally with everyone else. You know,
Yeah.
Is it a time to try to revive that again? You and I have talked about a citizens
listening
review
sessions?
board and listening sessions and things of that nature. Is that somewhere we can go to try to to raise some awareness to try to address some of these issues?
Well, I'd love to see us try to do a citizens police review board.
Yeah, right.
And the ACLU, because I was chair at the ACLU for a couple of years back in 80 something.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Always
But
room
anyway,
for you to come
yeah.
back in case you're interested, in case you have the time.
I have
but
no
yeah.
idea when it was. But anyway, I was chair at ACLU, and the ACLU in San Francisco helped us a lot. Jim Cruz was the guy that had been doing the work on it. But they have a whole section about police review boards and how they work and how they haven't worked and stuff. And I'm totally in favor of one, and having a conversation. The NAACP was invited to have a conversation with the police department, and that's one of the things we talked about, because as it is now, if you want to file a complaint, you have to file it with the police department.
Yeah.
It makes no sense at all to me. Well, how am I going to go tell the fox that he just got to eat my chickens? He knows he ate my chickens.
But we
he got
also
feathers all over his mouth, you know?
And we also have the police auditor, Bob Aronson. Now, I've spoken to Bob, and I think Bob is a pretty well-intentioned public servant, at least in view of the fact that he has to investigate police misconduct and police procedures that's filed by citizen complaints. But I don't think that's really enough. I don't think that really addresses the problem. I think if we, for instance, Wanda, you and your son, if there were a more direct avenue of appeal, a direct avenue of action, then that could address a problem that you would have immediately and maybe have the whole, impact on the entire community.
Yeah, I think so, because to me, there's no accountability for what they do.
Yeah.
You know, and just like in the past, I had went to the substation up in Felton to file a complaint. And then they told me that they would come and pick it up. And when I went back there, they didn't have any record of me filing a complaint. And that's why I filed with the Board of Supervisors. I started in '98 filing, because I got stopped 6 times in 6 consecutive days up in Felton for no reason. And I went to the substation, and am I allowed to say the sergeant's name?
Well, probably not.
Anyway, at the time, the sergeant that was there, and I went with a very influential white person, because that makes a point. And he made us sit there for 45 minutes. And he's saying, they said that I was speeding. I said, really? 6 consecutive days in a row. The 3rd day, I didn't even want to drive. And I said, really? They must like me that much. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, where's my citation or ticket? And I told him, this is DWB, driving while black, brown agenda.
Yeah.
So it's a practice up there in the valley. I know black men that wouldn't even get in their cars anymore. They would drive their bicycles.
Wow.
You know, and just like that officer who stopped my son, he said he stopped him because he didn't have a front license plate.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
He didn't give him a ticket. He didn't do anything. You know, and from the back, he should have known my son's never been in juvenile hall, never been in jail, never been in trouble. He grew up there. You know, see, and to me, it brings back the way I felt back in the day, being by them. Like they were stalking me. You know, people thought I was paranoid until they seen it and told my daughter. My own daughter thought I was paranoid. So all these feelings that I had back in the day are coming back up, and I'd be damned if my son had those feelings. So that's why I called Gail so we could do this. I'm filing with the Board of Supervisors. I'm filing with that sheriff. And, you know, I filed on a Monday on the 28th of April. Do you know that woman, the risk manager of the county, called me that afternoon? I didn't call her back. She called me Tuesday and telling me that I can't file, but I could have it amended. I have 15 days. And then the sheriff that handles it called me a week later, asked me how much money do I want, because I didn't put any money in there. I put life, question mark, life, question mark, life, question mark, racial equality and justice. I said, I'm trying to make a statement here, you know.
Well, one good thing that came out of the listening sessions we had a long time ago was I kind of got in a relationship established with the Scotts Valley police chief, because he came to listening sessions and he participated and he was empathetic, he heard it, you know, and we've been emailing back and forth because I invited him to the Undoing Racism workshop. And so we've been kind of corresponding and stuff, and it's really interesting because I'm trying to tell him the reputation Scotts Valley have with black people, has with people of color, that people of color do not want to go to Scotts Valley because you're going to be stopped and stuff. And he acted kind of surprised. I just think sometimes police are so out of touch with the community that's around them.
Yeah.
There's one of the big problems, and that's one of the things I want the police to do. One is get out of your freaking cars.
Yeah.
Get out and walk around the neighborhood. Figure out who's in the neighborhood, so when something happens, you know who's going to come to you, who you can go to. Just establish relationships, but they're not interested in establishing relationships, and that bothers me as much as anything else.
It's interesting, something that the Mithra was addressing, and that is to where there's a lot of enforcement of low-level types of offenses. Unfortunately, the attempts at trying to enforce on a lower level, particularly with Latinos and Secure Communities programs, have been an abject failure because it just threw a large net over everybody. And it really did not address the people who were the serious violent offenders that they were trying to put on ice holes and then have them deported. And so those types of approaches really haven't worked. I think we have maybe a unique situation here in Santa Cruz where we do have small minorities of people of color. Nevertheless, you know, those things should be addressed in terms of how we're going to respond to citizens' complaints, such as yours. It's not a black, brown, white situation.
It's a people thing.
It's a people thing, a citizen complaint. And in this county, we can, of course, make a complaint to the grand jury, and that's a very long process, which is not very responsive to, as I mentioned, Bob Aronson and the city doing that. But we need to have some other kind of mechanism, and that's kind of what we're looking at, I think.
I think it would really help if an advocate could help with the complaint process. I mean, in the case that Wanda brought up, she wanted to file the complaint on behalf of her son. She's a family member.
Right.
And a lot of times it seems like the person who's actually experienced the incident, they're traumatized by the incident, especially if there was some violence involved. They may not, it's too much to ask for that person where something just has happened to now go down and approach the police department, who, you know, the police are the one who hurt them. So I think it would be extremely helpful if there was some sort of advocacy group that people could turn to that group, say what happened to them, and have someone who's on their side so they don't feel like they're just approaching. The other thing is that you mentioned, you know, that Bob is very helpful, but not everybody knows that.
No, of course.
And so there's still, it's
Yeah.
just the police, they wear those same uniforms. It kind of looks like this homogenous group. And so if somebody has had really bad experiences with some police, it would be difficult for that person to then approach other police because they just have this perception, you know, the police are not on my side. They're the people doing the bad things.
You know, because my son, he was very scared. So if something happens to him, is he going to call the sheriffs to help him or the police to help him?
Exactly.
Right,
Is he
right.
going to be, he's going to trust them?
Call the police
You know,
on the
and
police.
this is my thing too. You know, why put fear in somebody so if they need you, they're afraid to call you? Because
Exactly.
they're afraid of you.
Yeah.
So he's not serving and protecting my child.
Yeah.
You know?
That's why I like to hear Bob Percy say what he was saying, you know. And also, I don't think anybody knows exactly how bad the problem is because they don't make the reports. They don't make a complaint to the police. They don't know why.
Right.
And when we had the conversation with the police a few weeks ago, and I've tried to tell them, no, they don't call you. They call me. So at least twice a year, some young black man or Latino man calls me and goes, I just got jacked up by the police. It's like, well, what do you want me to do? And they always say, I don't want you to do anything. I just want you to know.
Right.
And that I'm not sure what to do with the information. But at least a couple times a year, somebody calls me and says, I got jacked up by the police. Or this one young man who's been knowing since he was real little, got arrested, and one thing he wanted to do was pee, and he was making noise and they wouldn't let him, and they were just not paying any attention to him whatsoever. And he got more and more irate until they put him in this chair. And I don't know if y'all know about the restraint chair.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know if y'all know about it, but it's like the electric chair. Your hands are strapped, your feet are strapped, your chest is strapped, you know, and I think even your head is strapped. I think you are totally strapped in. And then he peed on himself. This is a 28-year-old. Oh God. You can imagine how he felt that nobody would help him to the point that he sat there and urinated on himself because the police would not come and take him out of that damn chair, and he was in the chair because he needed to pee.
Right.
So he called me up and said, man, I don't know what to do. So I tried to get him to make a complaint, and he doesn't want to do that because, of course, like we're talking about, he's afraid of the police. Well, I'm not going to go tell the police what they did. They know what they did.
Yeah, I also am a member of the NAACP. I've been with them for a long time. And I will help people because I have my email. It's right up there.
Which we have on the screen, absolutely.
Yeah. So anybody could email me, and the people up in the valley when things happen, who do they call? Because I did NCBI with you, remember?
Right.
And we did the first
National Coalition Building
yeah,
Institute.
and we did
Y'all
the
know.
first forum up in Felton at the Presbyterian Church with police office relations.
Yeah.
And the sheriff of Scotts Valley, the police chief of Scotts Valley came.
Yeah.
You know. And
He's
so
not a bad guy.
Yeah.
I kind of like him.
And what you're talking about is the restraint chair, which I think they still use over at the jail. And of course,
Yeah, this is like about 5 months ago.
Yeah.
This-
So
this-
our friends, Tim Barrs, the local group who has done so much good work on jail reform and jail abolition, for that matter, is consistently bringing up, the jail conditions. And we have a subcommittee working group in the ACLU about addressing jail conditions, and I think that's another area where you need more response from the authorities. Say, well, we understand that you are concerned about this. How can we engage on you and give you as much information as we think that is available, so that you can make some kind of decision about what's going on.
Having a citizens review board, I think, is every city and county in this country should have a police review board. Every last one of them.
Now, I know Mark Half Moon was involved with the Citizens Police Review Board in the past, about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That was,
he was on the board.
Right.
And I was part of the coalition that created the board. And that got pretty intense at one point because we got threatened by I'll tell you his name was Steve Clark. I don't have a problem with it because I do not like the man. He's threatened people several times. I mean, even recently about this whole Bearcat thing, he was pretty threatening.
Of course, yeah.
But when we were trying to create this police review board, he was very clear.
Simba, well, let me see if we have a call here. Let's see.
Yeah, something here.
You're on CTV with Simba Mithro and Wanda.
Hey, somebody's at the front door.
Hold on. Again, okay. Hey, somebody's at the front door there. There we go. We have John in the studio. So sorry, Simba, but we have a
Yeah, I'm John Maurer, and I've been in jail many times in my life, unfortunately. But my thing about, and I think it might be the same thing out in public as it is in jail, is just it's the police, and I'm a criminal. I'm in jail. They're not going to believe me, and what proof could I come up with? And I think there needs to be more of more people going into the jail to talk to people, to the prisoners and stuff about what the conditions are, and that they need to, even if it doesn't go where you need it to go, but I mean, you need to bring stuff up because I mean, it's deplorable, some of the conditions in jail and stuff, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know thank you, John. And actually, Barros Unidos does some work in juvenile hall in the jails. Friends Outside does good work in the jails. But nevertheless, there needs to be more of that. You were saying?
I don't know. I have no idea what I was saying. I'm 63 years old, dude. It comes and goes,
We're talking about the Citizens Police Review Board and how they did get a little heavy at Summit. Steve Clark,
Yeah, he, as we were in some kind of a hearing about it, and he said, well, for you people that want a police review board, next time you call the police, they may not come quite as quickly as you might like them to.
Ah, there you go.
And I thought, this man just threatened us. And one of the city council people went home to his wife, and he was literally shaking. He said he had never heard a police be that blatant about threatening somebody in his life. And I thought, well, this is my imagination. So I went to the library, because in case y'all didn't know, the library has all the city council meetings on tape. So if you thought you missed something, you can go check it out there. And so I went to the library and listened to it, and it was even more chilling than the first time I heard it, because it was out of context, so it was just him. So the push against a police review board is so strong, and the pushback, and their intention is to make people intimidated and afraid to even mention it, to even try to do it. And that's one of the problems I have a problem with, is that we have become the police's people instead of them being our police.
Right.
So what are they afraid of? What are they afraid of?
I don't know.
You know?
I don't know,
Why
but they
does
did
it-
say that he was in the police chief Bogle. He did say he was in favor of body cameras, which and the sheriff's
have to
department I
turn
think is
them
doing
on
it. Yeah, well, see, that's another thing. How they turn them on, how long they keep the information
Yeah.
to store it from them, because that comes into the ACLU
certainly.
wheelhouse about the privacy and how long you're going to keep information and who gets access to that information.
And they are
I mean,
having-
there's all kinds of little details that you have to
Right.
work
They
out.
are using, the sheriff is going to have some project where they're going to use a few. Capitola PD now do have the body cameras. And one of the problems with that is, how long is that information going to be stored? Where is it going to be stored? How is it going to be used? It's just
And I got to give the
capturing video.
sheriff some props too, because the sheriff's department is one of the first, and it's an experiment, that their guns, they have a chip on their guns. When and it registers somewhere in the police department.
Right.
It registers when it's drawn, how long it's out of the holster, if it's fired, how many times, all that goes automatically. You can't do anything about it. As soon as you pull your gun, it starts sending information. So I got to give them props for that, because it's an experiment that only Santa Cruz and 4 other cities in the country are doing.
I think that symptomatic of that is what we saw in Ferguson, where the population that is so heavily African American had very few African American peace officers. And that is certainly a structural symptomatic problem that we really have to deal with. You supported Bob Pursley when he ran for sheriff, and of course you did not win. Jim Hart did. Do you think Bob Pursley could have made a difference?
Oh yeah, because he's so community oriented. He's more community oriented than he is police oriented, which is maybe why he lost.
Yeah.
Because he wants the police departments to be an integral part of the community, not an occupying force, not somebody that comes in when something's wrong, but they're there as part of the community, and he's really big on that, and I think that would have made a big difference in how people perceive the sheriff's department, because perception is 90% of what goes on.
You're absolutely right, and I think Mithil can probably speak to this, because we had this long continuing battle about militarization of police forces, of the warrior cop culture.
Yes, and also, I mean, the flashpoint of that was acquiring the Bearcat. But it's symptomatic of just an overall mentality, like Simba was speaking of. Are the police there to protect and serve and help the community, or is it more of an oppositional thing? When we have these military vehicles, it definitely makes it look like it's more of an oppositional thing. And then, of course, my biggest concern with the Bearcat is whose house are they going to? They're going to go to someone who's poor, who's a person of color. That's where that Bearcat's going. It's not going to the Upper West Side. And so I think we do have an opportunity with acquiring that vehicle to keep an eye on it, see what is occurring. One thing that really has changed is we have this sort of equalization through technology thing going on, in that for so many years it was one person's word against perhaps a police officer, as actually the person at the microphone just spoke to, who you going to believe. And who was believed was, the person who was a white police officer who had done that for years, and then someone else who was perhaps, a person of color or low income, and they might even have a criminal record, wasn't being believed even though they were telling the truth. What's so wonderful now is those videos don't lie. And so now we have the truth because it's recorded. The ACLU actually has a brand new app for Android and iPhone, which is called Mobile Justice California. It's a free app. It's available in the App Store. And what this allows people to do is when you film, it will actually transmit directly to ACLU servers. So even if the police get the phone and destroy it or erase the video, ACLU already has it.
That'll be cool.
And they won't act on it unless they hear from the person who filmed it. But I think this is something that will actually accelerate this process of allowing the truth to come out, because those videos don't lie.
Yeah. Well, and they found out when they have police cameras that not only does the percentage of reports of police brutality go down, the actual brutality goes down, but also the reporting of it goes down, because people know that, well, this is on camera. I can't sit here and lie about what the police did. Okay, I won't go make a complaint because I look like a fool. So.
Wanda?
Well, I carry, I have a dumb phone, flip phone, but I carry a camera with me, a voice-activated tape recorder. And back in the day, I had a big video camera that I had after I stopped 6 days in the middle of my car.
Before the
Because
phone.
I didn't know what to do. I was like, and then I'm also registered with the Hate Crime Commission at Clark Atlanta University and 26 major NAACPs. Cecil Williams Guy Memorial Church, I had registered at the Center for Nonviolence. Angela Davis, her sister Fania Davis, a lawyer. I faxed everything. I didn't know what to do. I didn't, because I was like, well, what's going on here? And so I just registered with everybody. But I tell people, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to get them off of you. And filing with the Board of Supervisors against 2 deputies, they told a highway patrolman, I'm a hairdresser also, and I started doing his hair before he became a highway patrolman. And somebody stole my car and they wouldn't help me. So I asked him to help me. It took him 6 months to find the car. So he went to the sheriff's, and the sheriff said, you literally don't want to F with Wanda Conaway Knight. And then honest to God. And he goes, why? Because she'll slap a lawsuit you in a heartbeat. So he said, I said, because I will. I said, it's a paper trail. And I know it says when you file with the sheriffs, it's supposed to stay on their record for 5 years. But when you file with the Board of Supervisors, I don't know if it's a permanent thing. But I filed with both of them, even though it's denied, but because it's a paper trail. And so this way, it's more believable. And people up in the valley, it doesn't matter who they are, if they feel they have been harassed or whatever, who do they call? Wanda. Hey, Wanda, take care of it, Wanda. Because I just got frustrated, So I feel that's a way of protecting yourself and speaking out. It's like private pain is injustice, shared pain is the power of change. We learned that from NCBI,
One of the things that worries me is that since we have that Bearcat, that they're going to want to use it because, like with a boy with a hammer, the whole world looks like a nail. Everything in the world looks like a nail, and I think there's going to be a problem with them because I'm afraid that they're going to start doing what the problem has been going across the country when they've been using SWAT teams for minor things just because they have it. So they'll go serve a warrant to a nonviolent person with a freaking SWAT team. And I'm afraid that they're going to start doing that here, that they're going to find a reason to use it because they have it. But that has been a real big problem. I mean, they've been serving warrants to people that have done very little traffic things that has built up so that they owe a lot of money to the city, and they'll send the SWAT team to a person that has a bunch of traffic tickets.
Or mistaken identity. Because I've got stopped by the sheriff saying that I'm Wanda Knight from LA, been doing armed robbery and beanies since 1972. Wanda Conaway didn't come out here until 78. Wanda Conaway didn't marry Mr. Knight
so
until
you're not her, right?
But I'm not her, but I got stopped.
All right,
You're driving on a suspended license, I said, no, I'm not. I said, this is it. I've carried my birth certificate, my driver's license, and my social security card under my maiden name, which I still have in my purse today. So see, that could have been a mistaken thing.
I think the thing that concerns me the most as a citizen is that there is this undercurrent of racial disparity. There is this undercurrent of mistrust. There is an undercurrent of a warrior cop mentality. And we could have a flashpoint just as they had in Ferguson, just as they had in Baltimore, when one young man, a young woman, is in the wrong place at the wrong time and has a situation that's like your son's, but much more severe. And then all of a sudden, there we are. And how do we keep ourselves from that tipping point? Basically, what do we do to make sure that our community has less of this undercurrent of racial disparity, less of this mistrust, less of this non-responsive relationship between itself and law enforcement? I think that's the challenge of community leaders like people from the ACLU, NAACP, and Wanda, and yourself. What are our ideas about that? I think I know that Daryl Darling has told me that the only way to really get a Citizens Police Review Board is to do it with just volunteers outside of a chain of command, outside of no appointments from the city council, but just have it arise for citizens, a person from this group, person from this group, and then they could advise. We do have a comment and a question from the audience. Brent Adams. Brent, welcome.
Hi, thank you. It's an interesting conversation. I'm really intrigued around Santa Cruz Black Lives Matter, and then I don't know if there's a Watsonville Brown Lives Matter, but you can walk straight, when we talk about a flashpoint that could happen, you can walk straight out this door or go to the levee and you'll find quickly which population in Santa Cruz is most likely taking the full brunt of the police force in Santa Cruz, and it's the homeless population. We have a serious classism situation in
Big
Santa
time.
Cruz, and I would really like the prison abolitionists, the Black Lives Matter movement, any other social movement in Santa Cruz to really see what's really happening in Santa Cruz. The incarceration rate for homeless people is spiking, whereas, so I just want to just bring that to the table, that what's really happening in our community is police violence against homeless people of any race.
Yeah, but we've tried our best to criminalize homelessness, and you can't do, well, you can do it. They've done a pretty damn good job of doing it. But you know, that whole thing of classism and dealing with homelessness, and a lot of times, almost every time I hear people deal with homelessness, I never hear them talk about capitalism.
Right.
And there's no way in hell you can talk about homelessness and not talk about capitalism.
Well,
That's why they're homeless.
You and I were having a discussion the other day about something, I can't really recall what it was, and you made the distinction between classism and racism. You know, and this is an example of that. They just did a study in Berkeley that shows that criminalization of homelessness is on the rise in California. It's exponentially, increasing. There is the Right to Rest Act, which is now kind of floundering in the legislature, which thought to address some of this. But Brent is entirely right.
Right to rest.
That they're criminalizing, homeless folks as a class, as a target group, and I think the same is true with Black and brown people.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is the problem. That you are targeting class, and the class would be people of color, or the class would be poor, unemployed, homeless.
Yeah.
They're targeting with their laws from the lowest level to a sit-lie law to the highest level of, pulling somebody over because they're black while driving a nice
Well, that
vehicle.
targeting, when you use that word, African American men just pop in my head,
Right.
because we have been the most targeted peoples in the history of this country. And people might want to say Indians, but they didn't target Indian men like the way they target African American men. They targeted all of Indians. They just tried their best to wipe all of them out. So they're not targeting individuals, but they're in this culture. African American men are the target, and we were from slavery until now. Putting black men in boiling water. I wish people would actually learn their history, because it's horrendous.
Yeah.
I mean, seeing the way African American men, I have to take deep breaths sometimes, because I studied African American history and studies in college, and I've done a lot of this since then. And there's some images that I have in my head that I cannot unsee, that I wish to God I could. Just seeing the body of a charred black man sitting on top of a fire, and all these people, white people, standing around grinning, eating food and having a picnic. Matter of fact, there's a play a black man wrote called The Picnic, and it starts out with these young people, they're all excited, running around the house and figuring out what they're going to wear and stuff, and you don't know what they're going to or what they're going to do. But these kids are all excited and stuff, and then after a while you find out that they're going to a lynching. And they're just as happy and having a picnic, and they actually packed a picnic and went at a picnic and watched. And the other thing about race, that something that we never want to deal with, is race and sex. Because it's so integrally linked. I don't know if I can say that. It's something that, we don't like dealing with either one of those, race or sex. We're a puritanical country. Right. But most of the African American men that were lynched were also castrated. And we don't talk about these things, but these things are going on when these white men shooting these young black men. They got a lot of history going on in their head.
I can't even watch some of that stuff. Because
Hi, CTV, you're on with Simba, Mithril, and Wanda. You have a question for the panel?
Well, I was just about to make a comment
Please.
there in terms of how the county has the Bearcat. It's the internalization of what was externally, for foreign policy, militarization. So lots of jobs for the people, for the returning troops, and lots of uses for the hardware to hammer screws into the wall to solve social problems. I'd also like to say that those police cams will come in very handy, particularly in local controversy, when members of separate county police forces pick up homeless people and bring them into.
Yeah, I hear you. I appreciate your comment. You have a question before you leave for one of the panelists?
No. I was just going to put that forward about the police cams and what they would think about police departments foisting hospitality on people.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Hospitality.
Before we respond to that question, Simba, you mentioned earlier the Undoing Racism workshop that's going to be hosted by SCORE at the Police Community Room at the end of May 29, 30, and 31. There are still a couple or so seats available, so people can get a hold of you and you give them the information. Whatever information you have on the screen will be sufficient to do that, because that's going to be a 3-day workshop on undoing institutionalized racism, and
it's a very intense workshop, and they don't mince words.
This is from the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond.
For Survival and Beyond, and they don't. I know this may sound weird to people, but they don't protect white people, because a lot of times African Americans, sometimes we find ourselves protecting white people from their own history. You know, we don't lay it on them like it's in ourselves. We don't lay it on them, you know, and I think that's something that we need to start doing, is giving white people their own history back to them. Because seriously, I'm trying to think of an explicit example of somebody that does that. Because there are people that they're not apologists for what white people do. They just kind of protect them from their own doings, you know. They don't lay it. We're not forceful enough. We're not blunt enough. You know, we're very... We use euphemisms all the time. I mean, like disadvantaged kids. Disadvantaged. Not oppressed, disadvantaged. Who took their advantage?
Or people who live in the inner city.
The inner city.
A single family household, or a single mom. Nick Romney, did you see it? It was on Yahoo or something, that he's saying that a lot of the crime is because of single mothers. Single mothers. See, but they never say divorced single household. You know, oh, she's from a single family household, so, you know. And
or why their husband or why the father is incarcerated for nothing. You know, just why she's a single mother is because of the other crap. That's what I'm talking about, cascading consequences. We have shit that just cascades, and we don't pay attention to what cascades down. We just see the point at the top and go, okay, let's go for that. You know, but in the meantime, all this other shit is happening as it comes down the pike and stuff. And that's one of the things, you know, unintended consequences. Or I can't say they're unintended.
Well, you know,
because people say the system is broke, and I keep reminding them, no, the system is not broke. It's working just the way they were planned on it working. White rich people run shit. So it's kind of like, no, this is we're so naive.
And it's certainly regrettable, you know, in my view, that race relations in this country seem to be worsening. And I think that's driven by, and I think it's driven by the institutions. I think it's driven by the prison industrial complex. I think it's driven by the war on drugs. I think it's driven by militarization of police departments.
But read the polls, and the polls say that the white people think things are getting better. You know, we've got a black president. Everything's fine now. Everything's cool. You know, we can shut the hell up, stop complaining.
Well, clearly that's not the case, and you know, it's really regrettable. You have to do programs as Black Lives Matter. Certainly they do, and we're discussing that, and we're discussing it in realistic terms for our community and for our nation. But it's the kind of thing where let's get real about it.
We're still having to give our son the talk. And that is such a heartbreaking thing, having to tell your son how to act and how to be relatively subservient when he comes up against somebody with a gun, a badge, and a club. You know, and it hurts that they have to tell him that. You know, he's 9 years old, and I'm having to have this conversation with him before he gets 12 or 13 years old. I have to have it when he's really young. You know, we were walking down Capitol Road one day. We went beside his car. Traffic had stopped, and he heard this clunk noise. He said, "What was that?" And I said, "Fear." He said, "What?" I said, "That was a white woman locking her car doors about cause of us." And he yells, and it hurt his little feelings so bad because Dad, what am I going to do? I'm 8 years old. What am I going to do to this woman?
You had a comment, Ms. Mitchell, on that?
I actually noticed that Wanda had been wanting to talk for a while.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We both do that. We both do that.
Could you tell us what you were going to say?
Please.
After all the years, all the bad experience that I had with the sheriff, there was one sheriff that really shocked the hell out of me. I was on Capitola Road in SoCal, and there was a tour bus, and I went past the exit line, and the tour bus stopped, and he tried to back up. And I couldn't back up, and he went through and I went through. The sheriff pulled me over. He goes, "Ma'am, do you know what you did?" And I said, "No, what did I do?" He said, "You went through the red light." I said, "What red light?" He goes, "You didn't see it?" He goes, "Well, I have to give you a ticket because you went through it." So he gave me a ticket and told me to go to court. So I waited and went to court. And everybody else is up there, and all the other sheriffs are saying, well, I learned this and I learned this and I'm expert in this. So when they called the sheriff that gave me the ticket and Mia, he said, first of all, I want to tell you that Mrs. Knight told the truth. And I was like, I'm standing up there, and he goes, the reason why I know that, she had a little Volkswagen, she was behind a tour bus, she was past the exit sign. He said he went back and did some research. You could hear a feather drop in that courtroom. And I'm standing there like this, and all the other sheriffs are like looking at me, and I'm looking at him out of my eye, because it astounded me. I was shocked after all the bad experience I had with him. And so the judge said, oh, so you mean that she didn't go through it? He goes, well, she did go through it, but she didn't intend to go through it. He goes, but you gave her a ticket. Yeah, but she didn't intend to. She couldn't, And I was like, oh my God.
He's defending you.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was like, my eyeballs
Of course you're
stuck in my
shocked.
head. That's all, And I was like, and she goes, well, Miss Knight, I'm going to drop this. She goes, and that was a $455 ticket, and that was about 5 years ago. And I looked at him, I said, thank you. She goes, did you ever say thank you to him? I said, yeah. So we went outside, and I said, thank you so much. I was shocked, because none of them ever, it was like, oh my God, is this a real?
Wow.
And I said, are you new at this? He goes, I'm new at this. I said, oh. I said, where'd you work before? He goes, upstairs, I was a detective. And I'm saying, oh, well, you know who I am.
Yeah.
But it was nice, and I never sent him a thank you card. I want to say thank you for being honest, and thank you, so that was one.
Yeah, but I like giving credit where credit's due to the police,
and I just
too.
wanted to mention that because I just felt, when I walked out of there, I just felt like, oh, wow. I felt like I could trust again. I felt really good. And then when this happened to my son, I'm like, oh, okay. Every time I see one, I'm giving him snake eyes. Every time I see one. And I don't want to be this way. I don't want to do this. And I drive within the speed limit because I don't want to get stopped.
Oh, yeah.
So,
And it's interesting that you were talking about meeting with the police department around the time of the Bearcat. Don Lane had organized meetings with the police department and various interest groups around town. ACU was one.
Got to
Scranton
give him
was
props
another.
for doing that, too.
And it was a good, and they were good, productive meetings, but they were about police-community relationships generally. And the unspoken part of it was race relations in Santa Cruz. It wasn't really talked about. It wasn't part of the conversation.
No, we don't talk about it.
And that is the systemic part of the problem, in my view.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. That's the problem I have too. Is that we can't. That's what I'm talking about, protecting white people from themselves. We don't have this conversation because we don't push it. Because I think that America needs to take a cue from South Africa and have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And we have a commission for the prevention of violence against women. I think we need to have a commission on race relations in Santa Cruz because because there's so many white people. It doesn't come up because most white people, you can go through your day, your week, your month without ever thinking about race. It hits me in the face somewhere during the day, pretty much every day.
And I believe that if people would take a look at, just for two examples, Michelle Alexander's work and Tim Weiss's work on white privilege, just to use those as baselines, say, look at this and look at this, and then tell me what you feel about race.
Tell them again.
Well,
Tell them again. The book is The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, and if you haven't read it, you should, because it's very enlightening if you didn't already know these things, and the way she puts it and how she puts it and the figures and facts and stuff is just so undeniable that it's just a wonderful book.
And is Tim Weiss, is that a book, White Privilege, or he just did a series of lectures?
Of lectures is all I know.
Check that out, honestly. That is a great
Tim
baseline.
Weiss.
If you're really interested in race relations. You were saying, Wanda?
Okay. Every time I told this story, what happened to my son in Boulder Creek, because I know a lot of people up there, they're saying, Wanda, this was racism. And everybody I told was white. Most of them, 90% of them.
Yeah.
Oh, this is wrong. Your son never did anything. He grew up here. This is wrong. You need to do something. So I bring awareness to it, because I speak out. I'm not afraid to speak out because you have to speak out and let people know what's going on.
And I think, and I'll tell you a personal experience that I'll relate, is that I have taken a workshop or two since I've been with SCORE, and those are very hard on white people. It's hard on me. It's hard work. It's a hard thing to experience, and it should be hard because it's so important. It should be hard.
I
accept that.
I heard somebody say once that if you're going to deal with racism, get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be.
Yeah.
Well, I deal with racism, and I have been accused of hating white people, that I'm the racist one. And I'm like this, well, then I have to hate half my children because they're black and white. And I'm like, which half do I have to hate? And Lord forbid, my grandbaby is only a quarter of me, so I have to hate most of all them. And so
I also wonder, Steve, you said that race relations are getting worse, but I wonder if that's true or if it's just that we're talking about this stuff now and it's being swept under the rug.
I think it may be getting worse because not only is the racial thing going on, but the class thing is going on too, that these black people can't get out of certain situations because they can't make enough money to do it. So this shit starts getting all combined and so sorting it out and figuring out what to attack first.
And I think, Bethler, that I said that because it's a talking point. You know, it's something we need to discuss because I don't think that it's as good as we would like it. Certainly not as good as we would like it to be.
Yeah.
But it certainly needs to be discussed, and it needs to be discussed so that you understand that, oh, you know, it's not through rose-colored glasses. It's through, you know, the lens of, you know, we're not where we ought to be. You know?
Well, there's so much to do. I think discussing is probably the first step, and that's something that really kind of hasn't been done. There's been this illusion that a lot of people have in the U.S. that there's not that much racism or that that's behind us, and people desperately want it to be that way, but it's not. And so thankfully, one of the things that's happening with, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement and all these videotapes, because you just can't deny what's on the tape, is we're kind of ripping the mask off of that, and we're saying, no, there really is a problem. It's obvious, so let's stop being in denial of that and start actually looking at it. And I think that really is the first step. And now we're seeing how much there is to do, which is pretty overwhelming.
Well, we kind of see that we knew it a long time ago. You know, as African American people, we knew this a long time ago. You know, that this is not workable for a lot of us. You know, it just isn't.
Well, we have a few minutes left, but relate to us.
I'm sorry. Join NAACP.
Okay.
Before we go any further.
And join ACLU.
And ACLU. But considering what the NAACP has done for the last 100 or so years, and what we're intending on doing, and I'm saying join the NAACP because I want to double our membership in a year. And I want us to start having town meetings. I want the NAACP to take the role of starting town meetings about race, about race and class.
Perhaps even the listening sessions again, something like that. Yeah.
And then when you file complaints like I do, file with the NAACP. But that's why I think I got response so quickly. Because when I filed years before, I never got response like that. I got a letter in the mail. Sorry, denied. I never got a phone call from anybody.
Yeah,
so
it's only $30, and it's branch 1071, Santa Cruz County. And you can go online and do it, and you're a member immediately. And it's $30 for a year, and it's $15 for students for a year. So it's really cheap. I mean, I'm poor as hell, and I can afford $30 a year. I save $1.50 cents a week.
In our last couple of minutes, there was a really profound story that you told in one of the very first workshops about walking down the street with your son. And relate that to us just briefly. Right?
Ooh, which one, about him hearing the doors lock?
Well, yeah, and just the feeling of that. You talked about that earlier.
Oh, yeah, because you can't explain an illogical thing logically to a kid or anybody else. So trying to have him make sense out of this was really hard because it doesn't make sense. And he's always noticed since he's been a little kid that he's always been treated differently than his little white friends who actually are a lot richer too because we're poor. So he's got the class and race thing going on. And like I said, it just breaks my heart to have to tell him these things, you know. I shouldn't have to tell him, this is freaking 2015, or then it was like 1990, whatever it was. But still having to have that conversation it's unspeakable. We shouldn't be.
I had that conversation
I'm thinking about Tamir Rice, 12 years old. He's dead because he had a little pellet gun, you know. So you have to tell your kids, you can't even freaking play outside with a gun. I don't know what you tell your kids nowadays. They'll shoot you. You run away from the cops and they'll shoot you. So what do you do? You can't stay, you can't run. You stay, they throw in the back of the van, break your neck and kill you. You can't run, they'll shoot you in the back.
See, that to me is the root of the problem. Is that subtlety in it? It's the subtlety of racism. That unless you look hard at it, then you're not going to see it. And that's the kind of thing that we all have to examine. You know, is the subtlety. Is, you know, do you cross the street when you see a person of color coming down the street? Do you, as a white mother, grip your child a little more hard?
Oh yeah, that happened to me. Yeah,
that's the story.
Yeah, I was walking down.
And we have about a minute, but if you can
I was walking down the mall one day down Pacific Avenue, and I was approaching this woman, and she's holding her baby. And as she got closer to me, she looks at me, turns, puts the baby in the other arm, and holds it really closely. So this stuff starts even when you can't even talk.
Right.
This kid is watching his mom be afraid of this black person. It's registering somewhere, and and I couldn't say anything to her like, do you know what you're doing to your child? You know, this is basically child abuse. You're teaching
might
your
have
child how to be
started
racist. Boy, I got away from her as fast as I could because the way she did that.
Well, that's what I mean.
you know,
Start screaming
yeah.
and accusing you of something. They came out and
Yeah.
you didn't do anything.
Yeah, that just broke my heart because I was thinking this child doesn't have a chance.
Well, thank you
She's
so
doing it
much,
for me.
Simba, as always, for your insight and your humanity and your willingness to share with us what is a very difficult issue for all of us, I think. Mithril, thank you for all your work with the ACLU.
Thank you.
Oh,
And
thank
the
you,
pleasure to have
Simba.
you. And Wanda, a very happy Mother's Day to you
Thank
and your son, and we will do everything we can to make that a better situation for you. Thanks so much for watching this program on Voice in the Village. For Charlie Phillips and Betsy Phillips, our producers, for everybody in the engineering room, for people behind the cameras, we are all volunteering. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Remember that Black Lives Matter, but all lives matter. And we will see you next time on Voices from the Village. Good night.
Yeah, I was
Good
going to wear
show.
that button, walking while black is not a crime.
Yeah.